Greg, we're back. Hopefully the recording started. We're back. It's Lunch and Learn. It's Friday. Right now, my chat is posting pictures of AI generated pictures of me, which is extremely disconcerting, I have to say. But that's the point of Lunch and Learn. So if you want to see those pictures, I'm not going to show them on YouTube. You're going to have to come along. You're going to have to come along to the real-time chat on Teams. So you can find us on Meetup. We're on the Power BI Melbourne Meetup. Um, we are talking about ChatGPT. I was showing people how I used it to ask questions in real time in a conference. And now we're going to talk about the things that we're really here to talk about, which is our little data platform that we've been building. Here we go. Oh, let's go to our data platform and then close that one. All right. So for those of you that were here last week, you might remember we have our friend Jordan, who is a BI consultant. We're building a data platform for them. It's a little bit meta. We're building a data platform consult. You're forgiven, Michael. It's no worries. Uh, uh, we are we are we're building a BI platform for a BI consulting company. I know that's a bit meta, but I thought I'd do that because I know BI consulting companies pretty well because I own one. All right. What we did is that we're mapping our reporting needs back to the different areas of the business. So we have this project and task management, the different tools and stuff that we would use, and then we focused on our friend Jordan, who is a BI consultant, and what are the sorts of questions that Jordan might ask of this reporting platform. So that's what we asked ChatGPT there, and they came back with some good ones. This is a great way to use ChatGPT, like I've said in the past. Use it to help you brainstorm business questions you could ask of data sets. Yeah. So you've got a data set, got a good idea of what's in that data set, get it to brainstorm with you what are some of the questions you could ask. So the suggestions here, what are the current statuses of projects? What are all the project risks? Are any projects at risk of missing their deadlines? Which projects are on track, behind schedule or ahead of schedule, etc., etc. I won't go through all of them. There's quite a few questions here. And we started building a bit of a data model. It kind of currently looks like this. So we really only did the first 3 questions, right? And maybe it's the time tracking ones, I can't remember. But we asked these questions. What's the current status of ongoing projects? So we need to know our project status updates, and we need to know the statuses and the date and who the person is and what the employee is. And we have this concept of expected end date and the deadline date. Are there any projects at risk of missing their deadline? Which projects are on track, behind schedule, or ahead of schedule? So we're designing our data platform with a particular user in mind. Yeah. And so this is, this comes into a little bit around human-centered design and how we ensure that the things that we build are appropriate for the people that we're building for. So we shouldn't really add anything to our data platform that doesn't have a specific end user use case in mind. I think there's a tendency in data, particularly for people to just blob a whole lot of stuff. Oh, we've got a data lake. Let's blob everything into the data lake, and then I'm sure we'll use it eventually. That's probably the only place where you can really kind of get away with that, because that's not very much work. Although I would argue that there's a fair bit of work getting data in sometimes. But if you can easily load data, then you're probably okay to load, just a whole bunch of data into your lake. Pretty much everything downstream of that, though, needs some thought about how that data is going to be used. And because we need to do appropriate amounts of transformation, we need to ensure that it's going to be fit for purpose, it's going to actually answer the questions that people are going to ask of it, all of these things. So this is why we're doing so much upfront work. We've already had 2 sessions where all we've really spoken about is how is this going to be used. We've only really just started designing a data. It's not even the final data model. It's just a bit of a conceptual data model around what this has done. We haven't looked at any real data yet. So we want to use this approach as much as possible, because I think there's a tendency to waste a lot of time. Particularly, we know where all of 80% of the work is done in data preparation. Let's not waste that time building stuff that is never going to be used downstream or isn't useful for the person once we do build it. Okay, so we're going to continue building out our conceptual data model, and then we'll start looking at data sources. for this data model. So we almost work all the way to the end, so we can start thinking about what reports. So these questions really represent different reports, if you like. So what's the current status of all ongoing projects? Could be like a page on your Power BI report, right? So that's your current status page, and it's got all of your projects and what's their status, and maybe it answers that question in a few different ways, cuts it a few different ways, but that's kind of a report page. That report page then translates into a data model. That data model then translates into a set of source tables, and those source tables can't take us back to source system. So we go all the way to the end and look at what we're trying to build, and then we start working backwards to get back to the source system to what are we going to pull out of it. And hopefully we get those two things to line up. Not always easy to do. And then we can do some gap analysis to see, well, what are the issues? And I think that's one of our questions, right? In terms of quality of data and quality of there was a data quality question around here somewhere. Here we go, data quality integration. Oh, I'm not sure. Anyway, so that's kind of where we're at. So the next step, we want to continue to build our data model. We want to get it to a point where we kind of feel like we've covered all of a single domain of questions. So we've got this domain which is around project statuses and project tasks. I don't want to necessarily cross-pollinate that with time tracking necessarily, although they are kind of related. We could potentially have a time tracking element to that, but I'd probably create this as a separate model. And we could almost say that these are all separate models. So this project progress model is different to this resource allocation and utilization model because they're two related but different processes. And if you've got a model per process, so this comes back to Kimball star schema building. If you look at Kimball's first, the methodology that Kimball suggests in his book, the first thing you do is select a business process. And so you need to be able to tie your models should be related to a specific business process. Right now, this is all related to one business process, right? It's all related to project statuses and project tasks. If I introduce time, I have to be really clear about whether that's still part of the same process or not. I could argue that it probably is, but similarly with resource allocation. So these two are related, right? Resource allocation, utilization, time tracking and efficiency. I see them as two related areas. Monitoring the progress of projects, I see as a different process. I'm going to assume it's a different process for now. Budget and cost, again, potentially a different process. Even though there might be a cost component to project progress, like you might have a project cost versus progress, like progress type report where you combine those two models. You might have them separately. You got to think about the processes pretty carefully and how they cross over. Milestones and deliverables I see as related to project process. So we'll have a look at these questions. Quality and compliance, not so sure about that. Communication and collaboration, no, I don't think so. Client satisfaction, no, that's a different process. Retrospectives and learning, no, that's a different process. Okay, so I'm going to look at these ones, milestones and deliverables. Which milestones are coming up and are we prepared to meet them? So can we do that as a part of this? So we've got project statuses and we've got project tasks. We've got our project dimension with expected deadline dates and expected end dates. So I assume that there will also be milestone related things in here as well. We might have a certain other fact table, which is a milestone, project milestones. Are they different? So we look for an opportunity to consolidate. So is project statuses different to project milestones? Yes. So statuses is going to have the current status as we go through time. Milestones is going to have a list of the milestones associated with that project. And our project tasks is going to be all of the tasks that are related to particular milestone as well. So milestone also works as a dimension, doesn't it? So this could be project milestone updates. And that could be a project milestone. I've got to think about that. So you got projects and tasks. Tasks are associated with a milestone, different milestone updates are associated with it. And that kind of works for me for now. We might need to fiddle around with that for a bit. Are we prepared to meet them? Okay, that's an interesting question. Are we prepared to meet them means, have we achieved? So we need to create a quantitative measure associated with it, right? So have we achieved? So there's an expected number of tasks associated with a milestone. Is that captured? So we've got a milestone, we've got our tasks associated with those milestones. We've got our expected end date of the project plus the expected end dates of the tasks. Are we able to achieve our milestone based on the percent complete of the task, based on the amount of time that's gone by as well? So you've got your percent completed in terms of time. So let's say you're 80% completed in terms of time. Are we 80% completed in terms of tasks? Would that answer that question? We're prepared to meet our milestones. Yeah, it kind of does. I guess if your expected end date on your tasks happens before your expected end date on your milestone, then you're expected to meet the milestone. And then you'd have a percent difference. So that works still. So our milestone dimension here has an expected end date here as well. So you've got this high level project end date, you've got a lower level milestone end date, you've got tasks associated with the milestones, you've got your task expected end dates coming through your task updates. You should be able to calculate that. And then date is obviously related over here. Okay, I'm okay with that. Let me know what you think. If you've got any other thoughts, then chuck them in the chat. Have all the deliverables for the completed milestones been accepted by the client? That's excellent. So that is about, well, deliverables is a type of task, because you might have a task to say generate the user guide or whatever it is. So then you have this accepted status or not. That would be a part of our task updates. I'm comfortable that we've got that covered. We do have this concept of client though that hasn't been mentioned before. So let's add in a client dimension. All right. Are there any pending items or bottlenecks that could delay the deliverables? I think this still is in our bottlenecked task. How are we going to capture bottlenecks? If you've got a bottleneck task, that's going to be a task status update, which is still in our task here, saying, okay, task 1, 2, 3, current status is blocked. It's associated with this milestone, it's associated with this client, it's associated with this project, it's associated with this task. Yeah, that'll make sense. I think we can capture that with this model. And I'm happy, given that we answer milestones and deliverables and we answer project progress and health, to not complicate this data model any further. I will treat time tracking, resource allocation, and utilization as a different model. I'm going to give this model a name. I'm going to call this the project progress and milestones. All right. So if I were building this whole data platform for this person, then I would have to build probably 3 or 4 more of these, right? I'd have to build these resource allocation and time tracking one. I would have to build some kind of finance and budget related one. But there's going to be crossover. Like there's still going to be associated with projects. We're going to have a project dimension, but it's going to have finance updates instead of project progress and health updates. Quality and compliance, yeah. So I'm potentially going to build 3 more of these. I'm not going to do this now because I don't want to just do the same tasks over and over again. But what we'd like to, maybe what I'll do is I'll build them during the week if we feel we need to. But this gives me a pretty clear idea of what I need to build that will answer key questions that our mate Jordan has about their about their work. So let's move on to the next step then. So we've got a really good idea of what our facts and dimensions conceptually need to look like. And this is where the rubber meets the road for us, because we now need to go and figure out what else, whether our source data is going to help us do that. So we need to actually start looking at different source data sets. All right. Now I have to think about how I'm going to do this. We could generate some fake data sets and produce a prototype, which I've done a few times before on Old Lunch and Learn. I'm happy to do it again. That'd be option number one. Option number two would be we go and look at source systems and see what type of data we actually have. Let me know what you think in terms of how you think we should approach this. I lean towards building a prototype first, and I'll explain why. But if you've got, you reckon we need to look at source data before we do this? This is the reason why I'm giving you the option here is because this is a bit of a point of contention. Sometimes people like, is the prototype worth anything if we haven't looked at the source data? Interesting question. Because what if the source data is completely different in terms of structure, and we can't necessarily build this idealized model, right? And is that just a problem for the data engineers? And do we even care about it as the data modelers in this with our data modeling hat on? Well, we care because we're going to be doing everything. So the answer is yes, we do care. No one's said anything in the chat, so I'm just going to assume we're going to go with whatever I say. All right. Shelley says check first. Check the data first, you reckon, Shelley? Okay. Ooh, interesting.
Yes. So real world example, we deployed an out of the box fancy dashboarding system that the management software vendor was pushing. And it was great, it had all the bells and whistles, wonderful. So we deployed it, we had a pilot team on, and because we had customized our instance of this management software and had deviated from standard use case, it was useless, and it generated a lot of bad faith in our pilot users of, oh, well, this tool is no good. And so now me, as somebody who is familiar with the data, is having to come in on the back of that and try and build something that reflects the data as how we use it. And I've got to overcome all that bad blood and bad experience of the users. So it's even harder to get the uptake and buy-in. Yeah.
Yes, and that is why it's a point of contention. Okay, what does other people say? Rosie says we sometimes focus too much on the data and not is what's possible from the UX perspective. That is the counter argument. I'm more curious about what case you have for the prototype first, because I lean towards checking the source systems first. Okay, yeah, so Matthew says source system first. Steve says prototypes allow to have important discussions around processes early on. Yes. So this is an interesting area now, because I find people split pretty closely down the middle on this subject. Whether we should, like, how much prototyping should we do? How much should we ensure that our data is correct? The ideal world, we do both, right? Ideally, when you're designing this, you already have a good idea of what's happening in the source system, and you design this in such a way that takes into account a lot of those things. I think that's probably the ideal world. You're not always in the ideal world, particularly when you're doing consulting. I don't know the answer, unfortunately. I think there's you need, it's a bit of a case by case basis. I will tell you that I do know the source system in this case, which is going to be DevOps. We already spoke about the source systems, right? We think we said DevOps and Microsoft Project. Can I get project status updates out of DevOps and Project? Pretty sure I can. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure. Can I get task updates? Pretty sure I can get this. Can I get milestones updates out of projects? I don't know. So I might check that one. Statuses, tasks, projects, employees, clients, project milestones, dates. I'm pretty comfortable with the rest of that. This is probably the only question mark. How do milestones updates come out of Microsoft Project, assuming we're using Microsoft Project? So I recently started creating wireframes in Excel, and it works well so far. So yeah, wireframing. So I think there's a balance. I wouldn't let a prototype go to UAT. I see prototypes as purely proof of concepts. Yeah, how a prototype is used is really interesting. The benefit you get from prototyping is to get feedback about look and feel, but you have to be extremely clear with the users that you're not trying to present them any kind of thing that is final report like. So it also is about the expectations you set with the people that you're getting the feedback from, and also the type of feedback that you ask for. The worst thing you can do with a prototype is say, hey, I published a version of the report and it's up here in the cloud. You'll get feedback on stuff that you didn't expect, that people don't know why the numbers are wrong and what's going on and blah 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 blah. So if you're going to be presenting prototypes to end users to get feedback based on, and that includes, obviously the prototype in this case, it wouldn't be this data model unless you were able to kind of take them, unless they were kind of experienced enough with data to be able to visualize how this data model could be used. You would we'd use sample data, we'd build a report in Power BI, and we would present that back to the customers. You don't just give it to them and let them provide you open feedback. You sit them down in a meeting and you take them through the elements of the report that you've created. One other way that you can do it, which I know Steve uses, is you can create a GIF of the report and ask for specific feedback. If you have to do it by email for whatever reason. But the best way is to have a structured meeting with the end user to say, I am working on this thing. This isn't the report. We're not talking about the report. This is something else. This is my thoughts around how this report might work. I've got this concept of projects and tasks and statuses, and I'd like it to work this way. And this is going to drill through and show me the detail here. What do you think of the color of this title? Right? So you're asking for specific feedback and getting specific feedback about things. If you give them an open slather, they will give you feedback about stuff that doesn't matter to you as the end user. So I think this is a really interesting and important area, particularly for data people, because I think there is a real tendency to kind of go off and build stuff and not get that really good feedback from the users. At the same time, you can't just prototype up something fancy, as Shelley says, and say this has got all the bells and whistles and it doesn't match with your data in any way, shape, or form. And so you've got to mismatch that way, because you're setting expectations you can't deliver on. So there's definitely a fine balance. All right. Build a POC with a disclaimer that'll depend on the data that's available. Yeah, and so that's kind of the idea, is to, I really like POC and prototyping. I think it's really powerful and I think it's really useful, but it's also something that we need to be careful about the method that we deliver it, and the conversations we have, and the structuring, the user feedback, how we get that user feedback is really, really important. So that's my tips on prototyping that I've discovered so far in 8 years of building these things. Okay. So with all of that said, what I'm going to do, because I'm not sure about these project milestone updates, I am going to check this data set first. I think that's a pragmatic thing to do. But I'm only checking the one that I'm pretty not sure. Everything else I'm pretty sure on. I'm pretty happy that we can proceed with that basis. So that's where it's a judgment call. It's a bit subjective. How am I going to check project data sources? Well, I'm probably just going to create a new project in project and then start exporting it, to be honest. Let me have a look at my I'm going to open on a different tab, Microsoft Project, and see if I can just create a new project and with some milestones. Just opening on a different screen because there might be actual projects in here. All right. What's project? It's like project.microsoft.com or PWS or something, isn't it? PWA, project web app. Aha. New project. Okay. I think this will be safe enough. Here, I'm in project. This is project.microsoft.com. I've got my own project thing. All right. I'm going to start with a new blank project. Now, I've got a bunch of different project things I could make. Simple project, project management project. I think I'm going to say project management. Hopefully this will have sample data in it. I think it might. Let's do this one. Oh, look at this. Project management. Identify goals and objectives. Develop strategies and plans. Okay, let's just use this. Is it going to have data? No. Yes. Awesome. Here's our durations. Here's our data in it. It's got a template. Create a financial plan. Develop. Okay, so we're going to pretend that this is a data project that Jordan's working on. Okay, do we have a timeline? Here is a timeline. Look at this. Hey, cool. I presume we would call these milestones. There's our initiating phase, our initiating milestone, which goes, and then we got to develop our project charter and deliver a preliminary project scope. And then that all finishes here at the end of this phase. Perfect. All right. I need to figure out how to get data out of project. Export to Excel. That's going to be my first point of call. Do it manually first and then figure out how to do it automatically. That's my advice to you. Okay, I've got a project management.xlsx that it's downloaded. I'm going to open it up. The magic words, export to Excel. Exactly. If you've got an export to Excel data set, then you are home. All right. We've got start and finish dates. I've got a duration. I've got the name of a milestone. Do you know what I really hate about this? Look at this indentation. Oh, but it's got an outline number that helps me identify whether the task is a top level, a second level, or a third level task. So I think I'm okay. Can I tell you, and I don't know, you know who's going to be able to relate to this? Michael Schultz. But I can't tell you how many times Excel people have done this this type of thing to me, where they're like, oh, no, yeah, you can tell it's a top level task because it's not indented, and then this one is indented, so it's a second level task, and this is double indented, so it's a third level task. And you know what the other thing Excel people do is they change the color, and they use that to identify it as a data. So they say, well, you know what you have to do is use Power Query to export all the green cells. It's like, oh my God, you bloody Excel people. Anyway, so even at least with indentation, I could do like a tab, figure out whether it's a tab, it's limited. But yeah, there's nothing worse when they mix in like colors and then say, oh yeah, no, it's the green ones. The green ones are the ones that you need to be able to do export. So yeah, we have
one of the fun ones I ran into once, which was actually from SurveyMonkey. It wasn't real tabs, they were like web tabs or something, so it was like a hidden character that would only show when you right click on it in Power Query and go replace. Other than that, it would just be blank. That was the worst.
Yeah, that's a good one. Special character, even better. Anyway, so they're the joys of Excel. Steve said, oh wait, is my camera turned off? No, something's happened. No. At BSP. Exactly. Steve says that's only bad Excel people that do that. Yeah, well, that's true. Anyway, we pick it on Excel people. We shouldn't. We love Excel. Can I export milestones out of Microsoft Project? Short answer, yes. Looks like I can. Look at all this. Look how cool this template is. It's got effort in it. I can just use this as sample data. I should just change the names and away I go. It's in a different sprint. I can see the priority. It's great. Okay. What was the other needs? What were our needs for our thing? Because it wasn't just milestones. Which milestones are coming up? Yeah, that's okay. Are all the deliverables being accepted by the client? Yeah, that's okay. The pending items or bottlenecks that could create delay or deliverable. But this doesn't have any concept of a bottleneck. But we think that would be in tasks anyway, which we might capture that out of DevOps instead of out of project. So just to give you an idea of how this isn't necessarily how we do it exactly, but what I'm thinking for this example is that project managers are using project to kind of understand the day-to-day project level stuff. Developers are using DevOps to enter their daily tasks. So this project, these project goals here and milestones are also reflected in DevOps. And in DevOps, they're putting their day-to-day tasks. I spent 3 hours identifying goals and objectives. I've got 7 hours left of my day or whatever to complete that task. So this is task level, but also you're going to have to say those tasks. And then if there's a blockage, then that will be reflected in DevOps, because they're going to set the status of that task in DevOps to I can't do it because for whatever reason. So that wouldn't necessarily be reflected here, although ideally it would be. It's got a dependency here, which is interesting. So you could do it all in project, or you could do it all in DevOps probably, but the idea is that I'm going to mix the two just for a bit of, to make my life a bit harder. This doesn't have, it doesn't have I wonder if you could change the sprint to blocked. That wouldn't work. It's interesting when you start trying to actually make these things work, the different considerations you have to have. Anyway, short answer is yes, we can get project milestone updates out of this projects. Is it going to change over time? I think so. Here's what I'm thinking for in terms of process. I think what I'm going to do is get my project manager to do this export once a week or something. And I'm going to save it in a folder in my Lakehouse as the project status as at a particular date. Exported on. Look, I've got an exported on date even. So I don't even need to get the project manager to save it in a particular way. It just gets, it's captured here in the export, which is great. I love this. So if the project manager makes a change, then I can, if I want to, if I feel a need to, the data engineer can make that change. We can do this we can show the status updates over time. Not that that really matters, but I just thought I'd think about that. All right, I'm putting special characters in the chat. That's great. Okay. All right. That feels right to me. Let me know if you got any thoughts around that, but that seems good. All right, project works. We love project. So I've got some project. What I might do then is I might, just for the purposes, because I've already got project data that looks pretty much right. Let's pretend we're a project management company and Jordan's a project manager, not a BI professional. And then we can just use this data as it is. Okay. So they've got a bunch of different project milestones. What we need to do is get this also, so you can have a board view like this, right? What happens if I export the board view? Does it just come out the same? Surely it does. Yeah, just called project management 1. I think it's just going to be the same structure. Yep, same structure. Okay, cool. Just thought I'd check that. I would hope it would be the same. Yeah, me too. But I just never thought. I just thought maybe it was somehow be different. Okay, so we've got 5 phases in our project: initiating, planning, executing, monitoring, controlling, and closing, and a bunch of different tasks under each phase. So if we look at it in timeline view again, that's a phase name, and then develop project charter is a. Where is that? Develop project charter is here. Does it have subtasks associated with it? Connect to goals. How cool's project? Oh, sorry, let me look at my timeline again. So identify goals and objectives is underneath develop project charter. So there's develop project charter. Identify goals and objectives is not there. So these are the second level down, these cards. And then it should, does it have tasks under, oh, here it is, checklist, analyze business. Oh, so are they part of it on the checklist? Hang on, I'm learning project. Oh no, there's no checklist item on develop. Let's develop project charter. Sorry. Identify goals and objectives. Oh, look, it's got a 10 out of 11. Define the primary goals, define the primary objectives. There's 2 left to go. Is that what's saying? And it's overdue. It's due today. Okay. And look at timeline, identify goals and objectives. Oh, develop project charter. No, it's mixed. Develop project charter, identify goals and project. Oh, so, oh God, I've confused myself. There's 2 tasks. One's called develop project charter at the top level and one's at the lower level. Okay. Sorry. I thought it was the second level. It's not. It's this lowest level, which is what it should be. Cool. I'm not confused anymore. Thank you. Apologies for that. You never know with UX designers whether they're going to make the same. Yeah, well, that's true. That's true. What else can I say? Ooh, data. Planning, monitoring, executing, closing. Yeah, okay. So I've got some data that I've exported out of project. I'm going to use that. Can I build my data model with it? I've got project tasks in here. I've got project milestones, which are the higher level tasks. I've got project statuses. Let me have a think about statuses. Now notice, even though I've only got one data set, but I could potentially create all 3 fact tables out of it. And I still will create them as 3 separate fact tables, by the way. I won't try and lump it all into a single, because I know this model will answer the questions. So that's why I'm thinking that way. Project statuses. What's the difference between a project task update and a project status update? I guess a project status update happens at the project level and the task happens at the task level. Okay, got it. I've got to open that data again. Open the data and have a look. Got this high level stuff: project manager, time, project name, start date, finish date, durations, 84 days, percent completed, exported on. It doesn't have any concept of status at the project level up here, which is a shame. Effort remaining. Oh, is it a milestone? Yes or no? Look at that. That's good too. That's good for me. Effort completed, effort remaining. So that's all good. I guess it's in a particular bucket. We could infer the project status from this, but it doesn't capture a status for the project at any point. I guess we'd just have to think about that from a business process point of view, whether we want to do that or not. You know, like, is the project status inferred based on, well, the project status is green because there's no milestones outstanding, for example, or is the project status a field that the project manager selects to say project status is, you know, Bravo or whatever? That would be potentially different for different approaches. In this case, because it makes my life easier, I'm going to say project statuses are inferred from project tasks and project milestones. But I will create that as a separate table. Okay, can I get all of my various things from here, my various dimensions? Let's have a look. I need a status. Well, status is kind of here, but not really, is it? There's no, but I can infer status from something else. So I'll think about that. Task, yes. Project, yes. Is the name of the project here? Yes, it is. Cool. Employee. I've got the project manager here, and I've got the person it's assigned to here somewhere as well, I would hope. Assigned to's here. Okay, so none of these tasks have been assigned to anybody. So let me just assign it to somebody. . and then export again. Preparing for export. All done. We have exported your file. Okay. So now it just gives me the name of the person that it's assigned to. Okay. Not ideal. We would like their email address, but no big deal. Okay. Project milestone. Yeah, we can get that because we got that data set that shows us whether it's a milestone or not. Did I close that? Sorry. What have I done? Oh no, there we go. So I'm going to use my yes, no milestone to pull out my milestone dimension. Minimize. Okay. The client that is not captured. That's not really, you would have that potentially as a custom field, or you would add it to your project name. Maybe. Okay. The date. Yeah, we've got dates in there, right? Yeah, start and finish. Okay. Expected end date and deadline date for the project. Project start date, project finish date. So that's our expected dates. Or that's our deadline date. The finish date should be our deadline date, and then our expected end date will be inferred from our finish dates of our tasks. So I can get that. The employees available hours comes from a completely different data set. And that was more around another question. So we might pull that out of this data model. What was the question about available hours? Utilization, right? Yeah. Which resources are utilized or underutilized? I think that's a different model, so I'm going to pull that out. Cool. So using my little sample data set, I can build a version of this data model. It's not going to be particularly detailed, but it'll work. Sort of. Do we just try? Do I want to use DevOps at all? Do I just use project? These are the questions that we have to ask ourselves. Why not? It's just the first version, and we want to build something. Like, we've got to start building stuff, right? All right. So let's build something. So how are we going to build it? What are we going to use? We're going to use Fabric, of course, because Fabric's cool. And it's, are they going to, is it going to get properly like go GA at Ignite or something? Ignite's like in a week. No, it's not even in a week. It's in like 5 days. If you haven't registered for Ignite online yet, you might want to check it out. It's got some cool stuff. And apparently there's some big announcements. I don't know what all the announcements are, but I'm sure they're very big and cool. What do I think is going to be announced? Copilot? That's a good guess. Maybe they've already said they're going to announce that. I don't know. They're going to be Copilot for lots of stuff. That I don't know whether it'll be for Power BI though. Oh, nice work. Thanks, Shelley. Shelley's put the link to Ignite in the chat. All right. Let's build stuff. So we're going to use Fabric, our favorite, our best friend, our second best friend next to ChatGPT. I'm going to open Fabric over here. The usual caveat reason that I probably, hey, someone asked in the data model, in the financial modeling one, is it going to be app.fabric.com? And guess what? It already exists. App.fabric.com. If you go there, it'll take you to Power BI. Maybe not. Or is it app.fabric.microsoft.com or something? Definitely Fabric works if you change Fabric, this to Fabric. Does it actually work? Let's see. No, it doesn't work. Oh, someone was lying to me. Wait, they sent me a link. Sure, it works. Anyway. Wait. There you go. App.fabric.microsoft. It is app.fabric.microsoft.com. There you go. Thank you very much. I'm going to create a new workspace because we want a nice blank, fresh workspace for me to do things in. I'm going to create the workspace first. I'm doing this off camera because there's probably all sorts of stuff in my workspace at the moment. Okay, I'm going to call this Friday Data Platform. The name is available. I'm not going to give it a domain. I'm not going to give it an image. Oh, I really want to generate an image in ChatGPT. Okay, let's do that. We want DALL-E 4. Yeah, new chat. Can you give me, okay. Can you generate an icon for a data platform? What is it? Data platform workspace. I don't know what it's going to do in Power BI. Go create a cool image. Any excuse to use ChatGPT, I take. All right, I'll show you what I'm doing over here while that's doing that. It might take a while. I've created a new workspace. Here it is. Friday Data Platform, it's called. It's got a little fabric content icon because it's fabric content. And down here in my little thing, you can see I've got Friday Data Platform. And if I look at workspace settings, hopefully I can upload the image here somewhere. There it is. There's the image that I'm going to put it in there. Come on. Oh, it didn't do any. Oh, wait. Oh, that's perfect. Thank you. Download. Where did that DALL-E create an icon in downloads? All right. Okay, upload. Please tell me this works. Oh, less than 45K. I've got to make it smaller. I guess I have to resize image to make it. Okay, here, I'll show you what I'm doing. I'm on Paint. I've opened up the image. I'm going to resize it. This is completely not data platform related. I apologize. So if I keep it the same and make it, it looks like it's about 10 times too big. So I'll make it 10%. 15K. Okay, that's too small. So let's make it 20%. 43K. Perfect. Save. I'll call this downloads and we'll call it. Oh my God. Workspace image. Okay. New folder. There it is. All right. Upload. Workspace image. Please work. Yes. That's amazing. Anyway, there you go. Use ChatGPT to make cool workspace icons. Look at that. It's got like it's so detailed you can't even see it properly, but that's okay. Oh, I love it. All right, so we've got a cool image. That's the most important piece. Now we're currently in Power BI mode down the bottom here. Oh, I don't have Zoom turned on. Start my Zoom. Yeah. Oh, okay. Down the bottom here, we're in Power BI mode, right? So we want to change our mode to probably data engineering, maybe data factory, because we want to get the data in first, but we'll make it data engineering because I've got to build my lakehouse. So the first thing I want to do is build a lakehouse because that's going to be where I sync my one lake. I'm going to drop my files there. I need a lakehouse to be able to do all of that. Oh, the time zone difference on the Ignite sessions. Yeah, it runs between 4 a.m. and 1 p.m. Yeah, you got to get up real early if you want to watch. You can watch all recordings though. You don't have to watch it live. But if you want to get the full hype zone, then get up at 4 a.m. for some Satya Nadella hype. All right. What do we call our lakehouse? Now, what we've learned, don't call it lakehouse because then you get lakehouse.lakehouse. And don't call it warehouse because then you get warehouse.lakehouse. Anyway, so let's call it Friday. The Friday.lakehouse. Create in the Friday data platform. Swan.lakehouse. Hey, yeah, Swan.lake. I like it. So what's happening in the background? Is it how many people have never seen a lake house? Do like a reaction if you've never seen any fabric. So you haven't seen the fabric lake housey stuff yet. I need a reaction. So you gotta like clap your hands or give me a smiley face. Is that 0 people? Everyone knows what a lake house is. Great. Oh wait, no, there's one person clapping. Oh yeah, Rosie raised her hand. I'll assume that that's a reaction too. Rita, okay. So we created a lake house here in Fabric. This is now it's what that's done in the background is it created a storage location for us in the form of a ADLS Gen 2, which is Azure Data Lake Storage component in the back end. And it's given us like a Spark cluster. Well, we can now do Spark over the top of it. Sparky Spark. So we've got a cool lake house that we can start dumping files into. It's that easy. You've got your own lake house in one click. You can see here in my lake house, I've got tables and files. Nothing here yet because we haven't got any content, but that's the idea. If we look here in my one lake, which I'll just close a bunch of stuff. Okay. If you've seen my other videos or you've been following me along, you'll see I've got a bunch of different lake houses here because this is one lake, right? Just like OneDrive, you install it, you've downloaded it, you install your one lake on your computer. So I will install anybody who has access to drop data into my one lake. I'm going to install this one lake agent on their computer. And I'm going to sync this one lake. So sync from one lake. That's what I'm doing. And hopefully, all things being equal, something new will appear, and it did. And look, it's called Friday Data Platform right there. We have a new entry. That is a new lakehouse that I have created in Fabric. I can open it up, look, Friday.lakehouse. Inside Friday.lakehouse, I've got files and tables, and this table maintenance folder that you can probably just ignore. Inside tables, nothing. Inside files, nothing. But I can take my super cool project management 2 file, which I'm going to rename to just project management and a date, I reckon, just for simplicity's sake. So that's a 10. I'm going to do the backwards date 2023/11/10. Is it really the 10th of November already? Oh my God. This year. Okay. And I drop a file in there. So this is just the file I exported. I just put a date on the end of it. The reason why I put a date on the end of it is because I want to start doing dates. You could do a few different things. You could create a folder with a date and just put 2023/11/10 like that. Then you can put just the project management file in there like that. And then you could just call it project management. That's another way you could potentially organize this. Yeah. Because the file's going to be called project management when you export it, which is what it was called. And then it went 1 and 2 and all that stuff. But so when our project managers export it, you just say, hey, project manager, export your file and then go to the files folder and then add the new date folder and then dump it in there, or already create the date folder for them. You could do it that way too. Now, this is a manual process, but like I said, do it manually first. We'll worry about automating this later. I'm sure we can. I'm sure there's a project API. We'll be able to pull this data in. We'll be able to create cool stuff. All of that, I'm confident we'll be able to do. But for now, it's just going to be a dump and load situation. 45 days till Christmas. Oof. Okay. Now I've got data in my lakehouse, which I love. What I think I'll probably do, and this is where you need to make a decision. I think because we're doing a prototype, I'm going to use this data as sample data. So we don't have to generate any sample data using our buddy ChatGPT, although we might do that later just for fun. Next week, I mean, because we run out of time. But I'm going to use this. I'm going to build this data model. I'm just going to do it all in Fabric, I think. I'm going to use data flows then. So I'm not going to use any data factory components here. I'm not going to use any notebooks to do any data transformation. I'm going to use Power Query. Why? Because it's the easiest. It's also pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to use data flows to pull this data out. I'm going to load it into a lakehouse table using data flow, like Microsoft Fabric, and then I'm going to build a Power BI model on top of it. I'm going to build that data model exactly as we showed it here. I'm going to build this. This is what we're doing next week because we're out of time. We're going to build this data model using data flows, and then we're going to build a report on top of that. And then we're going to have a little conversation with our users and see if they like it. I don't know how I'm going to do that. Maybe I'll get someone to pretend to be the user. I don't know. And then when they don't like it, or we need to change it, or when they do like it, so we get it to the point until they do like it. Then when they like it, we're going to build this as a proper data flow using more robust tools than Power Query. That's my plan. What do we think? I think that's a pretty good plan. I think that fits with what I was hoping to achieve. So we learned things today. We did some modeling. We limited the scope of our model according to a business process. Very important. We spoke a little bit about checking the data and the data versus doing a POC, and should we do a prototype first or should we check the data first, or what's the blend of that? And the answer is it's complicated. And we're going to start the process of actually building out this data platform by first creating a simplest version of what we're trying to do. So the simplest version is grab an Excel file, manually download it, pull that data in using data flows or Power Query. You could do all this in just Power BI. You don't have to do the fancy Fabric stuff that I'm doing, but I want to try and use Fabric as much as possible. And then pull that in, create this data model in Power BI, and then we'll start creating a report. And then we'll have the first version of this solution for Jordan, and we can start getting feedback from Jordan straight away. That's what we want to do. Nice one. Well, folks, that's the end. It's the end of lunch. I'm sad to say. The good news is you've only got half a day to go until the weekend, which is great. So I hope you all have a great afternoon, and then I hope you have a great weekend. And it was a bit of a short week here in Melbourne, so everybody's probably still fired up. They're going to work all the way through the weekend. So have a great week. I'll be here next week. I don't have any plans to not do one, so we should be all good. And yeah, we'll see you next week. Thanks very much. Great to see you all. Have a great weekend, and yeah, we'll see you later.